Hey, it's Sharon here. And as you know, if you've been following the blog for the past couple of weeks, I've been talking about goals since it is that time of year to be setting goals for the next year. And I thought this little series would finish up in November, but I'm going to run just a little bit over in December because I really do want to finish the process. Now, we've talked about some of the reasons that some of the things you need to get set in your mind when you're setting goals. One of those is, what kind of a lifestyle do you want to live? Do you want to have time for hobbies or family, or, maybe you only want to work till 4 each day, or you only want to work 4 days a week? That looks a little bit different for everybody, but most of us want to have a life outside of work. So that doesn't happen if you don't plan it that way. So that's one thing. Another thing we talked about was, who do you have to become? For a lot of people, this is a tough one. I know it's been tough for me because I tend to like to not get up at the crack of dawn. So if I want to get in a workout in the morning, if I want to actually get down there on that treadmill, that means that I have to get up early. So maybe I have to become the person who's willing to roll out of bed 30 minutes earlier. If you want to journal or work on your business in the quiet hours of the morning, then you're probably going to have to become a different person than you are right now. You're going to have to change your habits, and it may not always be a whole lot of fun. But those are some of the decisions that you have to make when you're setting goals. Now, make no mistake about it, the people that write their goals down, they accomplish more, they make more money, and they're almost always more successful. Doesn't matter what their business is, you can have a job and have goals. Maybe your goal is to pay off your house. But once you write those goals down, just something happens with that whole process. So what I'd like for you to do before next week, when we talk about the final piece of goal setting, and I have some tools, maybe, like a worksheet for you. I want you to stop and think about, what are the big 3 or 4 things that you want to accomplish next year? Now, these should be big things. They should be significant, and they should only be a few, because it should be the kind of thing that you plan out and you work on, and you're going to get a big end result out of it. Now, for me, one of my big goals is to really get a solid content plan in place. I've talked a lot about real estate investing. I talk about it all the time. I kind of mix it up a little bit, marketing, branding, how to get deals. But I found out over time that I really think, for me, it's going to work better if I kind of have a theme going on. So my focus recently has been, what happens after you get the deal? So once you've found a house, whether it's 1 or 3 or 5, you know how to find a house. You may be a little bit, rocky on the negotiation part still. That's all about practice. But once you know how to find houses, whether you're a wholesaler or a rehabber or a buy and hold landlord, then how do you build a real business? How do you set up your marketing and your branding so that it all works together and makes you come across to everyone as being a leader in your marketplace? Now, none of these things happen by accident. And I got to tell you, it's pretty easy to go out and buy a deal here or there. It's not so easy to build a business, a purposeful business, where you're building out a strong marketing plan that ties in with your branding, that helps people start to bring you deals. In a best case world, you're going to be doing marketing, but you want to be the person that people think of when they have a deal to sell. Now, maybe it's a brand new wholesaler that doesn't have a buyer's list. It might be a landlord that's wanting to get rid of some properties. There are just a million ways why people would come to you and say, hey, I've got some properties to sell and I've thought of you. But if you don't create that online presence, if you don't purposely set out to create that presence, then that won't be you. So for me, you know, you need to understand that marketing and branding are like a couple. So marketing is how you get leads in the door, no matter how that is, what your marketing strategies are. So marketing is how you get leads in the door, and branding is why they choose you over the next guy. So why they would give me the deal over you, or vice versa. So as you're building your business, you need to be thinking about these things. And I know a lot of investors, they don't want to think about it. They just want to go out and find the next deal. So going back to my big thing, I'm going forward, I'm going to be taking more of an organized approach to teaching this, and going, you know, building on step by step by step. So the focus is going to be, once you have a deal, you know how to get a deal, you can kind of, you know, negotiate a deal, and you're building your buyers list. You got that piece kind of working for you. If you want to scale all of that up, then you've got to learn how to get really good at marketing and branding. And that's a lot of what I'm going to work on this year. So I talked to an investor. I'm going to tell you a quick story here, and then that'll be it for today. But I talked to an investor, and he was waiting to hear back on a house. Well, I already knew that several different investors were looking at this property, and in fact, a gal that I knew had gotten the property under contract. You know, this fella didn't even get a call back to say, well, you're not even in the running, but in his mind, he was still waiting on this deal. And finally, when I had a chance to learn about the situation, I found out why he didn't get the deal. First of all, he showed up and he was in dirty work clothes. He'd been doing drywall work. Well, we all know what that looks like. But he just kind of dusted himself off and went on the appointment. And in his mind, those people were going to know that he was a hardworking person. Well, in fact, they thought he was not a professional business person. They were really taken aback by the way he showed up. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to go put on a suit or anything like that, but you should always show up on appointments and be clean and look like you're there to do business. But here's the second part that sealed the deal. Even after that, these people were willing to maybe give him a chance. So they went online and looked, started to look for him. They Googled his name. You know, he had said what the name of his properties were. It was something like letters. It wasn't like this, but it was like J&R Houses or something like that. So they remembered that, and this was not a young couple. This was a couple in their 80s selling this property, but they were tech savvy enough to know to go online and kind of check this guy out. Well, what they found was absolutely nothing. He had no website. He had no social media profiles that showed up. He had no online presence. Now, if you've heard me talk about this before, you know I teach that if you don't create your online presence, if you don't create that brand, someone else will do it for you. So that's, you know, what happened here was these people in their minds, that was the brand that they created for him. Now, they weren't going to go put that online, but oftentimes that does happen. But what really happened is even worse, and that was that he was invisible. He was invisible to these people. He is invisible as a businessman, because you simply cannot make it today without a website, without an online presence, and you have to be the one to create that. It's up to you to put that together. So we're going to be talking about that going forward, you know, from here, and try to help you to not be that person that didn't get a deal because of that. Now, they don't know for sure that he was a good businessman or he wasn't a good businessman, but what the gentleman said was that he must be a huckster, since he didn't have any, there was no evidence he even existed. So that wasn't the case, but that in their minds, he wasn't a real business person. He was a huckster. So just think about that. But I know this is kind of an overwhelming process, but we're going to go through this piece by piece. Going forward, we're going to talk about how to build your brand with video and a lot of different things. So hit me up if you have anything that you want me to specifically talk about first. But this is Sharon Bornholt, and I'll be back soon with some more tips for you. And I'll be back next week, and we'll finish up this series on marketing and on goals. See you then.